All right, welcome everybody to the Human Experience with Doyle D'Angelo. I am your host, Doyle D'Angelo, and I'm here to welcome my best friend and guest Jack Thorsland. How's it going?
It's going great. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored, man. So thanks for having me on.
For sure, for sure. You know, we're really switching things up this time. Some of you might be familiar with the title D'Angelo Unfiltered, where I'd come on and I would make videos about different things, different outlooks on life. But it is much more fun to talk to another human about the human experience. And so that's why I've changed that name. And I think it's great to be able to bring different perspectives in. Really, the background for it is that you can learn something from everybody. It doesn't matter if it's a janitor, it doesn't matter if it's an artist, it doesn't matter if it's someone who's really wealthy, someone who is not as wealthy, right? I think every single human being is a wealth of knowledge, and that is the background to this show. Jack Thorsland just happens to be the former other half of YT Sons, former music group from Seattle, Washington. And now he is on his own journey, on his personal journey, trying to create his first album. And, there is a lot that goes into that. But, really to start us off, Jack, what inspires you to make music?
Oh man, that's a good question. And it's tough because I think back like to when I was a little kid, and I've always been infatuated with creating music and just music in general. Like one of my oldest memories uh, at my old house before you and I ever knew each other. I remember we had this microphone and it was plugged into the speaker system in our household. And I would just like bang it against the carpet and make beats and then like sing little lines in it. And I even remember like one of the first songs I ever wrote was called "Rockin' in the Trees." Like shit, man. I don't know what I was about, but it was pretty good. No. And then my aunt um was a bassist in a few bands growing up, and I attended a lot of her concerts, and I think that also had a big influence on me. But as I've grown up, just creating art, creating music has been one of the things that fuels me and brings me confidence in myself and also helps me to process emotions I didn't even know were there. And I love it. And I love creating music.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of having like that background in your family, kind of, channeling your inner curiosity as a child, which is something that we'll kind of get into a little bit later, just the
Mhm.
power of childlike curiosity in life. But you said it kind of is something that allows you to drum things up to learn things about yourself. So I guess like in that process of making music, like what are some things that you've learned about yourself?
I learned that I'm a very emotional person, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. It's one of my favorite things about myself at the end of the day. But when I make music, a lot of the times it leans towards more emotional, like feeling songs, and I think that's why I say that I've learned that about myself through music. Is I feel like my music's a reflection of that part of me in a way. Um, yeah, and like I also said, like I sometimes different songs I'm working on, like I'll I'll trigger an emotion that I didn't even know was within me or like an old thought, and it's kind of cool to have things bubble up just from creating that otherwise wouldn't be there, and you kind of process emotions in that way. And yeah, I've definitely learned a lot about myself through it. I've learned how what works best for me in learning and how I it's like my habits as a human being. Like for example, I've learned about myself that I'll put a lot when I'm focusing on a task in the moment, I'll put a lot of energy towards it and I'll grind on it. And then once I leave it, like it'll probably sit for a long time. And it's hard for me to pick that back up. And I started noticing that habit in a lot of other places in my life, like even my Minecraft world. Like I was like I had no energy, like motivation to upgrade some of my old farms and shit. I was like, nah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But stuff like that, it's like just like, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of like to go back to that point where you're saying like, music is like a reflection of you. Do you feel like that sort of holds true for every artist, or do you feel like some artists
mm,
kind of just make music for like the utility of it?
that's a really good question. Honestly, I would like to believe that like 99% of underground artists, I think that holds true for. But I could sometimes be a little bit of a pessimist towards the music industry, just thinking like at some point it feels very simple and basic. Some of the music I hear coming out, like I don't know, just feeling like sometimes like the art is for a paycheck versus when like in my shoes, I'm not getting anything but my own journey and process out of it. So I don't know, I put more of my soul into it. Whereas sometimes I hear art that just feels soulless, but that's my own personal opinion. but but
Right.
yeah, if that answers that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely does. And I think that's an interesting point to bring up because I see the same thing in the music industry where, all you have to do, like someone like Drake, for example, when Drake first came out, he was very hungry. He had that like versatility to him. He had this like soft sensibility. He was emotional. But then 2013 comes around, you're like, oh, this guy can rap too. And he's really coming for the game's head. And he took it and you could tell that the music came from his heart, right? Like I think humans have this intuition about music and about art where if it comes from you, like they're going to know it. It's like the difference between AI writing and human writing because AI writing doesn't have the soul, the human footprint and soul into it, right? And I think you see the same thing with like Drake after a certain time. You're like, oh, he's just pushing out music now. He signed this big record deal and now he is just, making music for the masses. But is it really something that he wants to make or is it something that these labels are forcing him to do? So
Yeah.
I guess like thinking about things from that perspective, you know, when you eventually get big and you get to the spot that you want to get to, are you going to be allergic to labels? Are you going to try to be like independent? How do you go about navigating wanting success and wanting money, but also staying true to yourself,
I
hypothetically?
I would like to think that I would always stay true to the type of art I like to make. Like the people I'm most inspired by are like Tame Impala, and I feel like he has always made his like he hones his own sound and makes his own art for himself in that way and puts it out. I would like to think I would hold true to that. Like in some hypothetical world, someone slides a like 500 million or shit like check. I'm whoa. No, I would like to think. Yeah, I wouldn't ever want to sell my soul. I don't even know what that would look like for myself. But I mean, the things I don't make any money from this, and I fucking love it. So I'd like to think if I was making money from it, I wouldn't like that wouldn't get traded. Like I wouldn't be doing it for the money. I'd like to think. Yeah. And I also just want to say like I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting and like I know some artists will try different genres and I don't think that's necessarily an example of chasing the bag is like, I think I don't think any artist should ever feel boxed in. So that stuff's beautiful. But like you said, like you can kind of intuitively tell the difference when people are when it lacks soul. Like it's like you said, like AI. Like so, this sounds like AI made this song. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm pointing to is that some artists they kind of find a formula and then they just hack that formula over and over and over, and you're kind of sitting there and you're like, okay, a natural artist is going to evolve over time, right? Like if you look at like Kendrick Lamar, for example, his
Mm,
albums, they all kind of sound different from each other because he evolved as a person and that was reflected in his art. Kind of going back to what you said before, where you do find music to be a reflection of yourself.
Mm.
That's my thing. I think that's kind of like the cognitive dissonance that some people have with the music industry sometimes, where it's like, okay, this artist was rapping about the same stuff or they're singing about the same stuff at 27 as they are now at 40, and you just know that it's not really authentic, but it's just a formula. And I think we kind of see that in so many different areas in life in general, just kind of
Mm.
the formulaic nature of creativity, and the optimization of everything.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, it might be optimal, but does it really have a pulse? And I guess
Mm.
it's to me, it's pretty clear that I think that a lot of art doesn't have a pulse, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love the way you put that. Like to me, I just think it'd be so boring to spit out the same sounding song over again. Like, do you just not feel like you're cheating yourself when you do that? I guess when it equals like $1 million per song or something, maybe you're not caring at some point, but it sounds boring.
yeah, for sure. Well, just thinking about music and kind of how music is a reflection of life and your inner world and all of these different things. Talking about what inspires you to make music. What inspires you about life in general?
Ooh, gosh. Something that's been popping up for me over the last 2 years. Like I got into bird watching a couple years ago, and I always find myself circling back to just how much beauty is in the world, and I think I'm inspired by that. Like just something as simple as like seeing the way light shines through tree branches and leaves, like how that's just art in itself, and that's so beautiful. And to be in this human experience where we get to like be engulfed in that beauty. And like I was telling you, there's baby coyotes living in my backyard right now. Like just watching them play, um, just such a unique experience of like life. Like I was at a climbing gym yesterday, and I had that thought, like I was in my own world there, but then I had that thought, like those baby coyotes are in my backyard right now, like in their own world, and that's just it's all the same world, but they're in some like a completely different. Like they have no idea about climbing gyms, and I don't know if that makes sense, but it just was like a perspective to me, and how that beauty is still there even if I'm somewhere else. And it was just interesting to think about. But that's something about life that definitely inspires me, and in my like lowest moments, I'll cling on to things like that. And to even take it further, like in my studio, I have a window and I can see out to a pond, and there's like this there's this a mallard duck that sits in the middle of the pond on some like object, I think a fountain, and I'll be like wearing my headphones, like feeling something I'm making, and I'll just like look at the duck out there, and just it's weird. Like I'll be making songs about like like fucking the government and how fucked up everything is, and just looking at this duck. Like I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you could go so many ways. Like what inspires you about life? I think that's the biggest one for me, though, just that raw beauty, especially in nature. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's something that I wonder how many people actually think about those things. The small little beauties in the world, I guess I should say.
Mm.
Like you can walk outside and you can look at a flower, you can look at a tree, you can look at, another living being like a coyote and be like, wow, like there's an entire universe inside that thing as well. My perspective of the world and my perspective of reality is so small and so minuscule and so like so tailored and just boxed in that I couldn't even fathom what their experience is like, you know? And I think that's a pretty awesome thing. Um,
Yeah.
so I think once again, there is just a lot of beauty everywhere and really kind of tapping into the small things, in life. Cause I feel like
Yeah.
we kind of get to that point where we have our goals set in place and we know where we want to go, and it might be very lofty, and then that can kind of create cognitive dissonance between where we are and where we want to be. But at the end of the day, we only have the here and now. So if we can find enjoyment from the little things and from our
Mm.
surroundings, then I think that's what actually enables us to achieve the things that we want to, especially in a creative journey. I think that's where a lot of our inspiration comes from.
Yeah. It's like I was saying about my lowest moments, like hanging on to that stuff. Like that is gratitude attitude in its purest form. It's like appreciating every all the beauty in the world. And yeah, man, it's powerful to see the world through that lens. Like kind of reminded me of, this is a little bit of a tangential thing, but like my mom sort of put a perspective on me. Like I had chicken in the fridge that I needed to cook, and I was feeling like kind of lazy, like I just didn't want to fucking cook a meal that night. And but then like I remember something my mom told me is like think of all the things it took to get that chicken in your fridge, um and how like a chicken died for its meat to be in your fridge, and you're just gonna like throw it away. Like it kind of made like got me off my ass, and I was like, fuck. And I felt so much better after taking the time to actually cook myself a meal. Like I don't know, just so much we take for granted. But yeah. Anyways, that just came to my head.
Yeah, I mean, perspective is another thing that we can talk about. That is something that I've been thinking about a lot. I recently got invited to the Global Shapers community,
Mm,
which is backed by the World Economic Forum. And it's basically where a bunch of young professionals get together, and they try to tackle world issues, so like sustainability, climate change,
mm,
inequality, things of that nature. And one of the guys that invited me, he was talking about how he would go to these conferences, these global conferences, and they are just the definition of excess. It's just a lot of money. It's in these huge, convention centers and these huge buildings with like AI that like records the meetings for them and things of that nature. And he was saying that there were people from like Ukraine who'd come there, people from the slums of like Africa, and they would still be faced with their current realities, and they would come to this conference and see all of this money and all this excess, and everyone's there to solve world problems, but it's kind of like a mismatch between, I guess, like the image
mm.
of it and the place that you're setting them in, if that makes sense. But really, I talk about that story just to kind of bring up the fact that like a lot of people think that they have it bad, or they feel like their situation is horrible. But it's like, okay, if you grew up in Gaza a couple years ago, if you were born in Gaza just like 4 years ago, what would your life be like? You know,
Yeah.
um, if you grew up in the slums of India, what would your life be like? So I think that there's always a different perspective, and there's always
Yeah.
something to be grateful for, because there's always someone who has less, right? And there's always going to be someone who has more. So I think that's the best reason to just appreciate the things that you have in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, like my mom is married to a Ugandan, and one of the things he's like fascinated by in America is we have paved roads like everywhere, our highway system. Even though I find myself complaining about the highway system up in Seattle because of fucking traffic, but like other places of the world, there's no concrete, and it's gravel and dirt roads everywhere. And those are like the little things like I would never think to like, damn, I'm thankful I'm driving on a concrete road right now. Like, but yeah, that's beautiful. And I love the idea of all the different people and cultures like bringing their perspectives together, because like even though we live in like such a high tech area, like our like you and I always end up talking about Eastern philosophy and how like some of the like people who live the most simply have the most wisdom, and like wisdom and technological advancement aren't equal in that sense. But yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. What do you mean like wisdom and technological advancement aren't equal?
I guess I meant like a lot of the because you and I have gotten way more into Eastern philosophy, and some of those, like that wisdom has just gotten lost over time. Like that's thousands of years old of wisdom that has been there, but is just lost in like mainstream like American culture. And um, for like meditation, for example, is not really like talked about, but it's a huge thing in Buddhism, uh, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And just like the certain philosophies that are kind of lost. And I think a part of this is just we live in an information age, and the paradox about having more information is that people don't really
Mm.
know where to turn. So there's so many different philosophies, there's so many different ways to improve your mental health. There's so many different ways to create a piece of music, right? You're on your social media feed and you're scrolling, you're seeing all these different people doing different things and people telling you what's right and what's wrong. And I think a lot of people kind of get to a certain point where they just don't know where to turn. Um, and this is why people get rigid because at a certain point, you just have to protect yourself from the amount of input. Like back in the day in like 1900, okay, you would learn maybe like a certain doctrine, you would learn a specific religion, and that would be the thing that you latch onto because there's
Yeah.
only so much information. It was a scarcity of information. It was gate kept. And someone who had all of the information was a very powerful person. Now we kind of have a democracy of information. And it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And when you kind of introduce technology into it, technology is something that allows us to be more optimized. It allows us to do things quicker. But I would argue that people actually aren't drawing on their own creativity as much as they used to. They are not forming their own thoughts and beliefs as much as they used to. And so we're becoming
Mm.
more reliant on other things instead of what's inside of us.
Yeah, I like the way you worded that last part. That's kind of what I was thinking the whole time. Is I mean that's something I think we're gonna have to battle and navigate our entire lives with social media and just the abundance of information out there, is navigating what we believe and what is true to us. And but you kind of just said what I was thinking there, like especially in regards to my music journey. I'm learning the value of trusting yourself. And like I'm inspired by guys like Virtual Riot, and I was just thinking the other day, like watching him produce, and he has all these what are called presets, like instruments that he's made, or like effect chains that he's made and has saved for himself to use. Like if he ever wants to just load it in, like, yeah, I like this reverb. Boop. I just love, like, I've been starting to do that more. Like save work that I've done, like instruments I've made, and be like, I fucked with the way that sounded. So I might as well, yeah, like keep, I don't know, like have that in stock. Cause I don't know, there's, especially like in all realms of life is what you're saying, but just with music, there's so many people out there just trying to like make money off of you, and like just trying to sell you ideas just for their own benefit and not actually to like help you. It's tough to navigate that type of shit, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, kind of getting back on, the topic of music, what would you say your creative philosophy is?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think of I've been inspired and compelled by the thoughts of like Rick Rubin and, oh, forget her name. It's Julia something, who wrote this book called The Artist's Way. But I was so in awe of the way they talked about creativity. They don't talk about it like it's like necessarily we're creating it out of thin air. Like they talk about creativity like it's everywhere, like it's universal, and all we're doing is like putting antenna up and receiving input from the universe in some way. And I, such an interesting way of thinking about it. And yeah, and just like where does creativity come from in that sense? But I don't know if I've aligned with that all the way. I think that's a really cool perspective. I do think like your life and your reality and your experiences shape your creativity in a way, like shape what speaks to you and what naturally like you want to create. So yeah, that's tough, man.
Yeah, but it kind of sounds like you're really going into maybe like the manifestation side of things a little bit, where
Mm,
it's like a lot of people think manifestation is like creating reality or like bending reality to your will, but it's not really any of that. It's just taking what's already present in the universe and you're basically using the power of focus and attention to, create whatever you want to create. Like
mm,
if the universe and the tools that are out there is like the canvas, your mind is the tool, right? That
yeah.
actually like turns like a blank canvas into a piece of art.
Yeah. No, I think that's so I had been thinking about that myself. Like as I'm trying to grow in my artistry, really all I'm trying to grow in is my ability to put what's in my head into like into reality and to bring it into reality. And that is kind of what creation is in a sense, is having an idea and then like turning it into reality in whatever way that looks like. Um yeah, and it's yeah, I love that perspective. But I'm also sometimes I find like the art guides itself too. Like sometimes just I think it's actually rare that I have an idea of a song and I'm like, all right, time to like make this. Like I kind of inspiration comes to me as I like get into working mode. Like I'll stumble upon a chord progression or a melody or even just like a raw sound that spurs another thought, and then sooner or later like I have a whole beat and I'm like, whoa, like I kind of like this. And or you think of lyrics, like sometimes like you'll have a chord progression or something and you'll think of lyrics for it and you'll say one line that just fucking just hits you somewhere deep in the heart and speaks to you, and then it drives the rest of your creative process. Like sounds you pick, different like melodies are based off of what's like just a line that struck like an emotion in you. um Man, you open up a can of worms with me, man. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome though. It's like you have one little thought, one little piece, and maybe like one little inclination, and then 10 steps later you have like an entire piece of music. Or it's like someone thought of the Empire State Building and then they
Mm,
built it out, the architect built it out, and then next thing you know the Empire State Building is there, right?
yeah.
And the amazing thing about that is that in some way, yes, you are creating because you're taking different pieces together, like taking different pieces of earth to make the Empire State Building, right? But at the same time, all the tools that you need are there. All the materials that you need are there, right? You're just putting them into one piece, and I think that's pretty incredible. And
Mm-hmm.
you could do that with so many different things. You could do that with your mindset. You can do that in your relationships. You can do that in, of course, music. As an athlete, it doesn't really matter. In any field, you can go through that process, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something that has been really important for me. I'd heard it on a podcast years ago. It was some guy that got falsely accused of a crime and was in prison for several years. And one of like the most important things he shared in this podcast that he discovered for himself is the importance of capturing ideas when they come to you, because like creative ideas or just ideas in general will come to you at the most random times a day. Like I told you before we hopped on, I was working on a song. I was washing dishes when I had like a flow idea for like, and I think Rick Rubin speaks on this, but what it means to be an artist in that sense is to like when creativity calls, you answer and you yeah, like where you either capture the idea, you write it down. Like that guy in prison said his takeaway was he always slept with a pen and paper next to his bed, and at night specifically, he said that's when he had his best thoughts. And I think that makes sense. Like you don't have any influences or input. You're just with your own thoughts, and shit bubbles up, and you have ideas. Yeah, and I mean that happens to me. Like I record personally, like with music, it's hard to write down. Like I think A goes into a C. Like I have to like whip out a video or like make sing or mumble or beatbox. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Something that is kind of lost on people, especially in hustle culture, is that your best ideas often come in your downtime, right? They often come when you're doing something random and then you're like, oh crap, like I have like this great idea that came out of nowhere. Or maybe it comes from a conversation that you have with a random person, experience that you have with a random
Mm.
person. Maybe it's a movie that you watch, right? But in that time, that you kind of just let yourself just not work and you don't have to be just super productive. You're not trying to create all the time just for the sake of creation. That's what actually feeds into the creative process because you're allowing
Yeah,
yourself to live life. And I've sort of found this too, whenever I am not balanced in the different life experiences that I have, my creative process kind of falls through the cracks, right? It suffers because the things that we go through in life kind of inform our art, kind of what you talked about before.
yeah, that's a really important topic you bring up. And this is something I'm still trying to figure out because I I do believe it's a balance. I I met this guy. I was working at a job site. It's actually the tallest building in Bellevue now. And he was an elevator operator while this building was in construction. And he used to like draw art in the elevator, just really fucking cool art, like birds and things that came to his head. And once I started talking to him, like he was like a Buddha, man. He was a wealth of knowledge. And he had his note card on the top of his drawing pad that said something along the lines of the amateur waits for inspiration to come to him. The master knows that inspiration comes when he sits down and does the mundane act of sitting down and gets to work, something along those lines. And I copied that note card. Shout out, his name is Isaiah. Sorry to steal your note card, man. But actually, I put it in my studio. It's right above my computer, and that's just the other side of the coin. What you're talking about, that I think there's value in that too. Like I agree. Some like forcing and pushing your way into making art, like you're just gonna burn yourself out sometimes, and sometimes what your brain really needs is to step away. And Rick Rubin talks about that too, how like even when you're not actively working on your art, your brain is solving problems in the back. You're like subconscious is working things through. But to that guy Isaiah's point, like you can't wait for inspiration all the time, and sometimes it does come up when you just sit down and work. And it's sort of what you and I talk about, like when you force it too much, working on music or like just working on your art in general, your craft becomes really like boring, and there's like a lot of resistance to wanting to do it. But sometimes when you find that right balance of like your life balance, work becomes play. And that's what I'm trying to navigate, because I think both of those truths we just talked about hold value. But it's tough, man. I'm pretty hard on myself. If I have a day go by where I don't feel like I advanced my art or my music aspirations, I feel pretty bad about myself. So I'm trying to work through that, because you're right. Like sometimes what you really need is to enjoy life and take a break, or like appreciate art maybe elsewhere. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain point where the work becomes mechanical, and art should never be mechanical. The
Uh,
creative process should never be mechanical. If it is, I think it's time to step back. Now, on the other hand, you can say, okay, yes, like you need to have a good work ethic, right? If a problem that you're trying to solve is very hard and it's not super fun, but it's just part of the process, I think then you should definitely push through, right? But
Yeah.
if you have like writer's block and you're just like you're trying to push through, you're trying to find inspiration, it's like, okay, you've run out of inspiration, you need to go gain some, right?
Ah.
Um, and
Mm.
then once you get back in the studio, you will have all of the ammo that you need, you know. And I think it kind of goes to this concept of like Wu Wei, which is effortless action. And if you're just kind of flowing with the process of life, flowing with the process of creativity, I think that's when the results kind of come to you. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the same thing with like the power of detachment, right? Like when you aren't attached to an outcome, you're just focused on the process, you're flowing inside of whatever's happening in the moment. And then success just comes as a byproduct because you are in the moment.
Yeah. Ah, dude, you just like summarized the whole chapter of this that book I referenced in the beginning, The Artist's Way. Like talks a lot on what you just spoke on. And she describes it as a well. Like inspiration has a meter and it's a well. And sometimes we can drain our well. And she thinks it's imperative to find things in life that fill your well. And bird watching, appreciating nature, one of those things for me. I think exercise is a huge thing that fills people's wells. And yeah, that's important, man. Like you can't just force your way into making art. I like you describing it as mechanical too. I've never thought of it like that, but it summarizes exactly what it's like to force yourself to make art when you just have so much resistance for it. But yeah, yeah, I like the way you said that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people they kind of embark on like this creative process. They try to get something done, and then they treat it like another job. Which I think if you are trying to achieve a certain goal, like sometimes you kind of do have to have like that process kind of on
Yeah.
lockdown. But I think you can also get to a point where you just kind of take the joy out of it because you're just doing it for a means to an end. You're not
Hmm.
exploring. You're kind of just maybe you're rushing through it. You're trying to get it done. You're trying to gain 100,000 followers, right, or something like that, right? The reason why you're doing the process is maybe disconnected from creativity itself, and I think it doesn't sound like you're like that
Mm.
for sure, but I think
Well,
that's a skill, and I think it's definitely an advantage, that you have if you just really care about the process and whatever. If the results come, they come. If they don't, whatever.
yeah, you're speaking on something really important and something I'm still trying to navigate myself, and that's process versus results mindset. Um, like I think we grow up sort of programmed to care about results. Like we go to school and we get grades, we take tests, and oh, like you got an F, you're bad at math. Like that's like the how it comes off to us. Like oh, I'm stupid. Like it's all based off of just like a letter score. But whereas I've learned the value of baby steps, and that's something Virtual Riot spoke on is how like even if you're working on something and it like you leave it feeling like you just made quote unquote bad art, like that's still putting you further ahead than if you had never made it. Like you're still growing. You are a better artist after you sit down and work than you were before. And I think that's something that's lost is like the slow grind. And how it is a journey, and you can't expect to sit down and make a fucking Grammy worthy song every time you work. Like you know, yeah, like that's so much pressure to put on yourself. Like art, I don't think like the best art is not made under pressure. I think like some of the best art is made when you're like you said, you're free flowing. Like Wu Wei. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that idea.
Yeah, well, there's so much that goes into that, right? I think social media kind of plays a big part in that. I think the ways that we are trained in school kind of play a big part of that because
Mm,
a lot of people they see success on social media and then they think that it's normal, right? They see like a Lamborghini, they see this businessman or who's worth like $100 million. This girl sees another woman who's getting like a Birkin bag in like Dubai, and they're like, okay, well, why don't I have that life? Or they see someone who got like really successful in music in a couple months, and they're like, like why can't I be like that? And this is
mm,
why a lot of people start projects, a lot of people start things and they don't finish them. It's because the pressure, the image of it just becomes too much for them to handle and they basically self-select themselves out of it because they have an idea of how it's supposed to go.
mm.
And, I think you can sort of tie that into school, right? Like, you could argue that in school, we really don't go to school to learn topics. We go in school to perform, right? We go
Hmm.
to school to perform really well, to get that grade, to get that really high SAT score, all of these different things. But a lot of the times, even in college, if you ask students, hey, what are the things that you've learned this year? They may be able to name a few things, but most of the things that they learned, a lot of the topics that they went over, they did not actually internalize them. They knew them just enough in the moment to pass a quiz, and then that was it. And so I think when you're kind of looking at the creative
Mm,
process, when you're
yeah.
looking at learning in general, if you take the slow route, if you just stay curious and you just let your mind go wherever it wants to go, but you're still accumulating that knowledge and you're really internalizing it, it might look ugly for way longer, but you're actually ahead of everybody because in 5 to 10 years, you're going to be a wealth of knowledge in music. You're going to be a wealth of knowledge in life, etc.
Yeah, like that's something they talk about in art. Like I was reading, Rick Rubin said, like maybe like when you even when you're making something that you think is going to be like your magnus opus, what if it's really just a stepping stone, and each piece is a stepping stone to get you into the next awesome project you're working on? And yeah.
Yeah, because I know. So maybe to jog a memory, we talked about the social media aspect and kind of like the image and how social media kind of distorts reality and people are expecting success to just come to them immediately, right? And they're
Mm.
kind of they're really attached to the outcome and they're really attached to the image, but they're not attached to the process to get there.
I was
Okay.
gonna say that that was a problem that I have sometimes is the comparison game. Just like looking up like, oh, well, by the time this artist was 27, like he had already come out with this album, and like everyone's journey is different, and I want to instill that in my head, like to because that's such a mental trap. Like you see that you're like, oh, I'm 27. This guy already made it. Well, looks like I can't make it. Like that's such a I don't know. Like, I fall for that sometimes, or at least like it triggers self doubt when I start playing the comparison game. But really, like everyone's journey is different. Everyone's life is different. Everyone's experience is different, and everyone's art is different. And like I think honing that and not putting pressure on yourself, like just being and enjoying the process is what where that's where I want to be. But yeah, it's yeah. Thank you for jogging my memory. Yeah, the moment I said, "Oh, there's a lot there," like, I was trying to like circle back to like item one, but I lost all items.
No,
But
it's okay. I mean, that was definitely a lot to process there because there's a lot of different things that you're tying in. But really, the thread is that we can sort of lose sight of the process. We lose sight of reality. We become disconnected from life in general. It's like kind of going back to the beginning of the podcast. It's like, okay, yes, we are here to be productive. We are here to make an impact. We are here to achieve our goals. But at the same time, if you can't walk outside and see the beauty in a bird that's
Mm,
flying above your head, if you can't see the beauty in that tree that's right next to you, if you can't just be in the moment and appreciate the human beings that are around you, if you always need something material or something better, then are you actually enjoying life? And do you have the right mindset on what life is about? Because
mm.
this is kind of a heavy topic, but it's just real and it's true. It's like when you die, are you really going to care about all of these different material things that you achieved? Or are you really going to think about the experiences that you had, the people that you hung out with, like all the amazing people that you met, just the little things, going on that hike with that friend, going on that trip with that friend? I don't know. I just think that in general, and that's what life is. Like most of the time, you have your goal, which is like up here, it's the apex or it's the current apex, right? And then you have where you are. That stage in between is where you spend most of your time, just living life and getting and
Mm.
just being in motion, right? And so I think if we can really appreciate that aspect and just appreciate the little things in our everyday lives, um, life just becomes easier. And I think that success just kind of finds us.
Yeah, well, I just think of how life can become like grayscale when you're just locked, like how you talked about some music processes as mechanical. Like I think like life can get mechanical in that way and it just becomes grayscale. And to your point about when you're on your deathbed, like I like to think about like what am I going to regret when I'm on my deathbed? I'm not going to regret not making more money. I'm gonna regret not, like you said, going on that hike or spending more time with this person or taking that chance. Like I experienced that. Something I like to I think about is this is a little bit of a tangent, but the butterfly effect of life is what I like to say. How when you make decisions that put you out there and like you are taking a chance or like sometimes life just like throws things at you that you would never have before. Like yesterday when I went climbing, I before I went, I like I had this urge to not go. Like I was like, damn, I really could just enjoy my coffee and fucking play Minecraft right now. Like
Yeah.
and just have it's like not to hate on those type of days. Like sometimes those are really important and nice days, but like going out and actually going climbing, like I met people and I interacted and I like it changed it. This sounds really dramatic, but it changes the trajectory of your life forever. Like your life from here on out is different because you might have formed a new connection, you met someone, you exchanged a number, you like tried something, you learned something new, you discovered a new place, like and just from here on out, like your life is different because of that. And I want to find that balance too of like living life. Like what back to what you said, what is it? What is life really about? What does it mean to live? And I'm still trying to figure that out myself. But
Yeah, and I think it's a personal process. I think this is the issue with information and the issue with like hyper optimization. We live in a very optimized world. Everything is about speed, everything's about improvement. How can we make this process a little bit better? How can I make my mindset a little bit better? How can I do this a little bit better? And it's like, how can I create like a really good worldview for myself? Um, this is true, this is not. But we always have someone telling us what all of these things mean. We always have someone
mm,
telling us what we should and shouldn't do. And, I think that the meaning of life is whatever you make it, you know.
mm-hmm.
Like we talk about
What?
like success and I'm sorry, go for it.
Oh no, I was just gonna like what speaks to you. Like continue. Like yeah, figuring out what speaks to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like what speaks to you and, really detaching from labels because you know, people have a label of what success is, but success might look like something totally different from one person than the other. Like success for one person might be, hey, I want to have a really nice, loft in New York City and I want to be married to a lawyer and I want to be able to go and travel anywhere in the world that I want. And for other
Mm.
people, success is, you know, basically just like buying a house, finding a wife or a husband, and living a simple life, having a few kids, raising a family, and putting their kids in school. Like it could be so many different things, right? But it's all
Yeah.
about perspective. And
Yeah.
one thing that is like really cool for me or really successful for me might not be the same for another person, but something that I feel like just doesn't really cut it for myself might be someone else's dream.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're all different in that way. And like there's nothing wrong with like a simple life, quote unquote. And I know for me, I want to travel and stuff. And um thinking about, well, we've talked about this before, how a lot of people in our generation are kind of sick of the like 40-hour work week, like just working for the man type life. And I'm certainly no different. Like I want to travel, and I know it speaks to me. And but also to like, I think goal setting and working towards things are, that feels pretty fucking good too. Like
definitely.
and but finding like what those goals are is important. And what, yeah, like what what are the things that if you accomplish, like you like feel fucking awesome. Like for some people that's um climbing a mountain face without any protection gear, like on a 4.5 hour long climb free solo. But like stuff like that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. It's whatever, kind of going back to the original point, it's whatever you feel like is successful to you, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and once you identify that and you don't let anyone else tell you how to get there, what it should look like, what the process should be like, I feel like
Mm.
that's when you get the most out of life, for sure.
And circling back to art a little bit, that reminds me, I think, of something very important. And that's
Mhm.
I love the way Rick Rubin put this. So I'll just try to paraphrase what he said. But in the context of people telling you about your art, like what they think it should be, like what you should do here, there, like other people's input can be important. But Rick Rubin says, if this guy thinks A, if this girl thinks A, if your brother thinks A, if your sister thinks A, but you think B, then it's B. And like your art at the end of the day, it's your, and just to like put it wider scale, like it's your life. And like, I don't know, I always kind of circle back to that. Like it's almost disrespectful to yourself to not listen to what you want and to like just appease what other people want. Like it's kind of like you're dismissing yourself. And yeah, that's no way to live. But
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to one of the first things we talked about in the podcast was how a lot of artists they do make music for themselves. It is a reflection of them, and then eventually, basically, what you're saying is that they abandon themselves and they abandon their creativity to optimize for a certain outcome. That kind of puts together a lot of what we've been talking about,
yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's still, you might get a certain outcome, but what do you lose? Maybe I don't want to say your soul. That sounds very dramatic, but you know, kind of.
yeah. Back
And
to
I
your,
think I think that's what people mean when they're like, oh, like Beyonce or Jay-Z or all these people, they sold their soul. And people think literally like these people sold their soul, but that's not what people are talking about. They're talking about selling themselves out to get
yeah,
money and to get
yeah.
success.
And it's back to what you said. Like at the end of the day, what are you gonna regret? And I think that's something a lot of people would regret, is not doing their thing. Like, yeah, not saying fuck it, I'm taking this vacation. Like, you know.
All right. So, what is the value of humility to
Mm.
you?
I think humility is important in all aspects of life. You talking you're talking music or just humility in general?
I think in both, in both music and life, you could probably draw a thread between both of them.
I think humility is very important because I think you learn the most when you allow yourself to not be an expert of something, like there's something pretty much the premise of this podcast is there's something to learn from everyone and to not go through life thinking like, nah, I'm the shit. Like I know everything. I don't know. Like I'm good. Like it's kind of a, I don't know. There is something to learn from everyone, and I think back to like music. I think it's super valuable to look at everyone like an open book or try and like if you like the way this guy does something, like maybe you can learn something from that and not just living with your ego like nah, like I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. What sort of power do you feel like can be gained from having humility in everything that you do?
Well, for one, I think people who are humble are very nice to be around. So yeah, because I think also deep inside of humility is a self-confidence. Like even though you're presenting that, hey, I don't know, there's like a confidence in that and admitting that you don't know something and not caring what people think. Like
Mm,
there is such a confidence in that.
I
So I feel
love
like a
that.
lot of the time, yeah, when we're trying like pretending to know something or pretending to be something, it's because of our own insecurities in a way. So yeah, I think there's like a lot of self-confidence. I've been trying to em- like embrace that more. It could be difficult. People ask me if I know a song, and because I'm so like out of tune with modern music, sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I've heard of that." Like, but fucking, I've not heard of that.
Right.
But yeah, oh, I think also like like I was sort of saying before, and just to summarize that is, I think you cap yourself off and like your knowledge and your learning when you don't have humility and you don't allow yourself to like learn different perspectives. So it's so
Yeah.
important.
So, kind of connected to this, but I want to see what you think about this quote. Um, in order to be a good teacher, you have to be a good student. And in order to be a good
Mm,
student, you have to be a good teacher.
damn. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Something that comes to my head, I don't, I mean, a quote is for everyone's interpretation, but just one interpretation I have of that is like an, it's very specific to like a teacher perspective. But in order to be a good teacher, it's good to understand what it's like to be a student and to know how to learn and what type of attitude like a student receives information best. So I think that's really valuable. Yeah. And then to be a good student, it's good to know how to be a maybe just yeah, that one's tough. What do you think that means? The other side of that coin.
Like, in order to be a good student, you have to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
I think that whenever you are in the process of teaching and delivering things to people, um, like you learn how to refine that. You learn how to reach people in a better way. You learn
Mm,
what doesn't work, right? Maybe you try to teach something to someone and they push back and they make you learn something new, you know? And so
mm,
I think everything is synergistic. It's like people people kind of think of like causality, which is partially true, but it's like, okay, if I'm sitting down with this book and I'm reading about quantum physics or whatever, right? Like, I have to be a very, very, very good student and I have to really take that time and learn in order to deliver it. But then in that delivery, I'm also teaching myself that topic. I'm learning that topic more. And then I'm basically stress testing what I know against the environment. And when you stress test anything against the environment, what happens? Refinement. And you just get
Yeah.
better. You get smarter.
Yeah. And then you also kind of got me thinking, I always, I'll always think there's a lot of value in the why. Like when you're learning something, like the meat and potatoes of it, I think is really important. So just in respect to to be a good student, you need to be a good teacher. Like when you're trying to learn something, if you can really understand the deeper levels of it to the point where you could teach it and handle questions that are thrown your way, I feel like that's a like a level understanding that will really serve you versus just like the copy and paste method of learning, like memorize, like you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a good quote though. Yeah,
Yeah. And
when you
and
gotta
you
like
think
sit
about the
with.
modern like education system, it's like the, copy and paste, okay, read this book or read this, this PowerPoint, memorize everything, and then spit it out for a quiz, right? It's very
Yeah,
copy and paste. It's not.
yeah. You don't fucking like a month later, you're not. That's like it's gone. Whatever it was that you fucking bashed into your memory, it's gone. Versus when you like get into the meat of potatoes of things, you could get to those conclusions yourself. So they're never really lost because you understand what it takes to get to like those places. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's why I think that the gap between the people who really know things and the people who can really synthesize information and deliver it to the population, to can deliver it to whatever company that they work for. I think the gap between the people who are really successful and the ones who aren't is going to grow because there's a lot of people who are relying on Google, they're relying on AI, they're relying on social media to gain their information and to get things done for themselves and to synthesize information. And so there's going to be people who really just can't synthesize that well, and there's going to be people who can very well, right? And that causes a
Mm.
disparity, which I think is interesting because I think over the next 10 to 20 years, that might cause ripple effects in the job market as well. And it might be harder for companies to find people who actually have like that autonomy of mind and that
Mm.
creative ability inside of themselves. I don't know. Do you think that's like cynical or do you feel like that there's some truth to that?
Well, I guess I'm wondering, do you I think there's truth to that. If do you think it's so just like expand a little bit on what like the synthetic what what are those two types of people? The one who is able to learn synthetically and produce synthetically versus the one who's not and is sort of disconnected to that.
Yeah, so synthesizing information is really just the ability to, like, say, for example, you read two to three different books, right? Synthesizing is being able to take all three of those books, putting them together and drawing a thread, and basically
Mm,
like creating like a worldview or like mapping out the commonalities between all of them, right? You're kind of piecing them together. It's a process of creation. Like when you're writing a book, when you're writing an article, that's synthesization. You're taking
yes.
everything that's in your mind, the latent space in your mind, and you're putting it onto paper, you're putting it out there in the world for other people to see or to be productive, right? Same thing with music. There's a lot of people who, say, for example, they don't know how to write. So they go into the AI, they type in a prompt,
Yes.
they say, write me this article. Okay, the AI is producing it for you, but you're handicapping your ability to actually write yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it's like that person who's like, if you go to like an AI and you're like, okay, what is a good pickup line? It's like, it should come from within you. That's what's going to make you good
Yeah.
in the dating space. Not,
Totally, totally haven't done that before. Yeah. It's like, give me some dating advice, chat GBT. I'm like, what do I say? Yeah. Never done that.
I mean, that's very honest, right? And I I think ultimately, and these are things that we have to think about. We have to think about how technology handicaps us over time.
Yeah.
That's a big topic that I've, you know, people who have followed my channel so far have already been talking about a little bit. But it's just an interesting thing to think about, like as technology grows and things become more optimized, and even something as simple as like having Amazon deliver everything to us, like we just kind of become disconnected from the human process and like what
Yeah.
humans inherently do for a living.
Yeah. No, that I absolutely see what you're saying. And what I'm thinking is a couple things, but one, like finding that balance as to, because AI is a tool and there are uses for it. I believe there are times when it is useful. Like I've used it to help me plan my trip to Taiwan and Bali, and that's been helpful. And it's like helped me pick out a backpack to carry my bird watching scope in. Like that shit was helpful. But using like being dependent on it for more human experiences, I like a pickup line. That's a good example. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's tough though because like you kind of get a dependency. You can be getting a dependency on it to do certain things, but also like we're dependent on electricity and to do certain things. And if we didn't have that, then we kind of be fucked in a lot of ways. So AI is kind of similar in that respect. Like if you, yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I kind of disagree with that because AI, like electricity, is a technological well, it's not even in an advancement. It's not a creation. It's just something that we discovered in the universe, and we
hmm
use it now to our benefit. But AI is an optimization tool. It's something that will help us do things that we couldn't have even imagined we could do, right? It'll, help us discover things that we couldn't discover before. I've used it in that way for sure. So I get what you're saying. It's not a technology that is just all bad. It definitely has like a lot of uses and a lot of utility for the world. But I think a lot of people use it and they don't understand that they are handicapping themselves. You know what I
I
mean? So I think
I
there's kind of like
understand. Yeah,
there's a balance there because you can outsource your ability, you can outsource your thinking all the time, but then when it comes time for you to create and it comes time for you to think for yourself, you might stammer a little bit.
I know exactly what you're saying. Like the way I'm thinking of it is like working out a muscle, and there's all these skills humans have that um like if we have AI come in and take over for these skills so we don't have to work those parts of our brains, then those parts of our brains become frankly like not as not as strong, so we don't become as good at certain problem solving or writing, reading, because we're or like yeah, because we're using this tool to do it for us. Um, yeah, is that kind of what you're saying? Because I
Yeah.
completely agree with that.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm thinking about.
yeah. I mean, like, kind of going back to art, like using AI to make art. Like, I think there's value. The only time I ever use AI when I'm making my art is when I want a little bit of help brainstorming, like rhyme words or like different ways to say things.
Hmm.
And to be completely honest, most of the time it's fucking junk. Like what AI spits out at me, I'm like, this is a horrible line. Like what the fuck is like this is horrible. But
Yeah.
um, but but I think there's value in that in the sense like it produces inspiration. Like I have had it happen where um like say I'm writing a song where I want like or something connected to space and I'm like, hey chat, can you like think of some terms that are related. Like I could say this in a way that's related to space and like stars, and it might spit some things at me that spur new avenues of thinking, and that can be powerful as a tool. But using it to do the work for you, mm-mm. yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's just having a balance with all of these different technological advancements is something that, we're going to have to need. And, um, I think most people aren't mindful of the different effects of these different technologies. And so that's my point, just be
Yeah.
mindful. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of go back to the topic of humility. What would you say is the value of networking to you? Do
Mm.
you think that in kind of tied into that, do you think that there might be misconceptions about networking?
I think networking is very important. I am in a season of my life where I am not networking as much as I should, I guess, or maybe I'm just not in a season of my life where networking is one of my priorities, but it's very important. I think, some people say it's not about, or I can't I can't think of the exact quote, but the idea is sometimes it's about who you know is what makes the difference in the end. And there's truth to that. And I think I, yeah, I think just for me, I'm in a season of my life where I want to become like I'm honing my skills. So maybe I could gain from uh networking a little bit. Oops, AirPod fell out. But yeah, it brings me to the story of Kanye and Timbaland when they were working on the song Stronger. Like, I don't know if you've heard this story, but Kanye really couldn't figure out the drums on his song Stronger, and he had like 10 drafts from his mixing engineers trying to get them the way he wanted. He was being very picky, but and they just couldn't get it. Something wasn't right for him, and he was trying to match Sexy Back by Timbaland and Justin Timberlake. That was the song that was huge in the clubs at the time. And Kanye was like, man, my drums like don't bump like theirs. And so what did he do to figure out how to make his song or his drums bump like theirs? He hit them up. And so he hit up Timbaland. And the story goes that he flew Timbaland out and Timbaland solved it in 5 minutes. Like he fixed his drums on that song in 5 minutes, and which is fucking cool. And showed him how he did it, and like, but yeah, but like back to humility. Like when you think of the word humility, Kanye is probably not the person that comes to your head, but that's a really beautiful.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely not.
beautiful. That's a beautiful example of the value of humility because like putting such and networking, putting two beautiful like great mind producing minds together and like what you can make when you do that. Because I mean, you think of like so if you meet someone else that has grinded the way you do and has a grip on art in a different way, but still a really strong grip of like their craft that you do. Like there's something like they have something a part of their process that you can absolutely learn from. And every time I watch Virtual Riot produce, I feel like I learn something, even if it's a minor, like even if it's a little setting I can do within my DAW, my digital audio workstation to like change like today I've used a new tool that I learned a couple nights ago. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great story to tell, because you have Kanye West, who is like he's just a genius at what he does, right? You could say whatever you want about Kanye. He is a musical genius. And he had
Yes.
to go to another musical genius to figure something out, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to, Kanye could be the best teacher in the world, but in that moment, he had to be a student. He had to be a student of Timbaland, right? An OG. And I think that is the way of the universe. You have to learn from someone who knows things that you don't, right? They have different techniques that you don't have. And, I think
Yeah.
that's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean you can't do it on your own. I think the most intelligent people understand that. I mean, like if you're learning something, if you're reading a book, you're reading someone else's knowledge. Like that's kind of that's allowing yourself to be a student. And if it's just personable for person to person, it's the same thing. It's just like a direct human interaction versus reading their works. Um, yeah, it's so important.
Yeah. And so would you say that's like the main power that can be gained from networking is just
Hmm.
coming back to this concept of being able to learn from different people?
I think I don't think that's the main. I think that is a strength. I can't say like a main benefit. I know another benefit that comes to
That's fair.
mind, which could be the most valuable, is just like back to the butterfly effect of life, like the opportunities that can come your way through networking. Like back when I was in YT Sons with Reef, our first show was at this place called Central Saloon, and we had a decent show, and we gained rapport with that venue, and that became a venue we could constantly go back to. Um, and Reef held an event there after. I struggle to remember the artist's name. Maybe you know. There's a EDM artist that was performing at either Showbox or Safeco or something, T-Mobile Park. Ugh. But and Reef had an after party at Central Saloon, and that artist like came through, like found out about it and ended up coming through, which is so cool. And like none of that would have happened if we didn't have good rapport with that venue. Well, maybe not anyways. And it's things like that, like so many shows that Reef and I did were with our like community of artists, and like, we'd invite artists to our shows, and we'd end up being able to do shows with them, and meet different people and learn different things. So I think the opportunities that come with networking are huge, because you can't expect yourself to have all these opportunities come your way when you're like me and you spend a lot of your time in your dungeon working on your music. So I guess just I think I could benefit from getting into that more, but that's a huge aspect for me, is the opportunity side of things.
Yeah, I think that life is about seasons. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to be locked into a basement and you're going to be working on what you're working on. But then once you come out into the world and you put your album out there, it's going to be a huge process of just straight networking, right? Talking to different people, putting your music out there, trying to get people to listen to your art. That's just like a huge networking sprint. And I think in the creative process, in the music industry, that's kind of how things are.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely get that. I had someone recently tell me, hey, you have all the tools that you need. The only thing that you need to tap into is networking. And this is something that I kind of thought about before. I'm like, yeah, like I have a strong network. I make friends really easily. I connect with people really easily, but I don't do the certain things that I'm supposed to do in networking where it's like, networking is more than just meeting people and getting a contact. It's following up with them. It's nurturing that relationship. It's seeing how you can provide value to that other person. How can you make their life a little bit easier? You scratch my back,
Yeah.
I scratch yours. And it's not even
Yes.
supposed to be a transactional thing. It's just, what can I do for the next human? Okay, what can I do for this human? How can I be of value to the world in general? And I think the more you can do that, things just open up because people want to give you opportunities. People want to give you money. People want to
Yeah.
hop on your podcast. People want to hop on your song. I think it's
Yeah.
all relationship building. It's a process.
Yeah. And sometimes like someone you networked with introduces you to someone else, like even so take this out of the music realm, it's like they say the best way to meet your partner is through a friend. Like that type, like you meet people that you wouldn't normally meet when you have these connections, and that could change your life. um it's like one opportunity can just change everything for you. And I think that's also why they say that luck isn't real in that sense, is like you put yourself in that position to be ready for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're kind of getting to, the latter part of this podcast, but definitely want to close it out by talking about the power of play. Um,
Mm,
what do
mm.
you think is the power of play?
Oh man, there's a lot here. I think I think some of my best art is made when I don't feel like I'm working. Like I feel like I'm having fun right now. And it reminds me of when I was a kid. I look back and think of what it was like to be a little kid for myself, and I was into a lot of the same things I'm into right now. I played outside a lot. I liked sports. I played video games, and I worked on music, and I did little videography. Made YouTube videos, and I never felt when I was doing that stuff like this pressure of I need to do this today. Like I need to advance. I need to, and yet I still did it. Like I still enjoyed it. I wanted to do it, and there's something there. Like when life can feel effortless like that, when it feels like you're not forcing yourself against resistance every to act every single time. Like there's something there. Um, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's super valid, taking it all the way back to your childhood and thinking of all of the different things you would get into and how much joy you drew out of those different activities. And I think that that's a process of creation too, in a way. But I think that's the same mindset that we can have as adults. You know what I mean? Like we can go through life, we can enjoy the things that we're doing, and I feel like we should enjoy the things that we're doing. Not all the time. Adult life
yeah,
is really understanding that sometimes you have to be disciplined. You got to do the things that you have to do. But I think
yes,
because of that aspect, we have to be very intentional about what the rest of our life kind of looks like, and it should be things that we enjoy. And I think kind of goes back to that original point. If you're in this process of making music or you're making some sort of art, but you are kind of like your own warden or like your own drill sergeant in the process, then is it something that is really fun to do in your free time? I think
yeah.
that's a good question to ask. But
I mean, it's even like I noticed this with myself today. I did work a lot on music today. Like for honestly, it was like 4 hours on this song that just kind of just came out of nowhere. But I realized like I was walking up the stairs to like go fill up my water or something. I realized I didn't feel accomplished at all. Like I was like I didn't feel good about it, and which was weird. I'm so hard on myself about like putting time towards my craft, and here I am. I just put fucking 4 hours into it, and I'm walking up like not feeling like what the fuck, man. Versus other days before work, I'll work on music for like 20 to 30 minutes, and it changes the trajectory of my day when like I wake up joyous and want to like just fiddle with something, and even if nothing comes from it, like I don't know if that even makes sense, but I think it's crazy like when you get into that mindset of like that mechanical, like we were talking about mindset, how it takes the joy out of the process. Like even when you're doing the mechanical like warden wants you to do, like there's no joy in it, and it's um yeah, it's just very interesting versus when there's joy in it, sometimes you make some amazing art, and life is just better. You just have like life is
yeah,
you just enjoy life more. Like what the fuck? We're not like if if making art is making you unhappy, then something's fucking wrong. Like what? If especially if this is your dream, like do you want to be unhappy with your whole like the rest of your life? If you accomplish your dreams, are you gonna be unhappy? Like, what's the purpose of that? So
yeah.
yeah,
And I think you can apply the same mindset to work, to
mm,
every aspect of your life. I'm very much in the camp of, look, if you're not enjoying this, if you are miserable doing this, you just should not be doing it. Because if we kind of go back to the original topic of life and death, like this life that you live is very limited, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like, why sit there doing something that you actually abhor, or something that just really like you physically just don't want to do, when you could find so many different opportunities out there? So like the universe is full of possibilities, right?
Yes.
And so I think you can apply that to life too. And I think a lot of people kind of box themselves in by, just kind of allowing that mechanical nature, or that mechanical field to kind of seep into every part of their life. But I think it's a radical act of self love and self respect to say no,
Mm.
and to do the things that you want to do the way that you want to do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, putting yourself first in that way.
Yeah. 100%. I also notice that when I'm enjoying my work, that's when I work my best. Like I'll put the extra hours in. I'll grind. I'll go into the weeds with it, and like that's like you produce your best work, whatever it is, when you're enjoying it, when there's actually passion behind it. That's an important word, is passion. And when you're not passionate about what you're doing, like how the fuck could you expect the result to be anything special? Um, yeah. And kind of circling back to what we talked about in the very beginning, like you can tell when something was made with passion. Like it's almost like a hidden sense we have, or some sort, like some intuitive feeling. We can tell when something is made with soul and with passion, or done with it rather. But
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And I think that's what a lot of people want, right? They want to be able to live life with passion. They don't want to wake up and be like, "Oh, I got to go to work today." You know, like
No, hell no.
who wants that? Like you don't wake like as a
No.
kid and as a teenager, you don't wake up like that. You're like, "Okay, I'm getting up. Oh, I'm going to see my friends today," or "Oh, I'm going to go and play basketball today." Whatever. But like
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is like that cognitive dissonance. Like you kind of have to find ways as an adult to like work around that, you know? So, um,
Yeah, and
yeah,
and it's and it's all possible. I think like a lot of sometimes we fall into that trap that I can't. Like I have like I'm stuck here. And yeah, I can't speak for everyone's circumstances, but I think a lot of people are scared to take risks too. And
yeah,
like the truth of it is, like in a world full of possibility comes a world of uncertainty too, and uncertainty is very scary. Um, so walking into that is not easy to do, and you got to give yourself grace for having those fears and for being resistant to that. But kind of back to what we were saying, like on your deathbed, what are you gonna regret? Are you gonna regret taking that chance, or are you gonna regret not taking that chance? Most likely, not taking that chance.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think you have to get to a certain point in life where you understand that life is chaos and entropy.
Mm.
And we get into trouble when we try to control outcomes. We say, well, I have to have control
Hell,
over this. Like it's like no, like if you want to get to the place that you want to get to in life, you got to take risks. You got to accept that things may not go your way, and you just
yeah,
keep on pushing and you take another risk anyway. Because what do you really have to lose?
yeah,
We have one life. This life ends. Okay? So if you're going to take this life to the max, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that that is a message that a lot of people need to hear. And I think that
yeah,
I would say that that's one thing that we can learn from children and teenagers, is that fearlessness. Now, of course, it has to be bounded, but that's something we can
yeah.
learn. Actually, that would be my next question for you is, what do you think that adults can learn from children and
Ooh.
teenagers?
Wow. Hmm. What comes to mind is, like, specifically for children, like I remember I was driving back from a run, and I drove by this kid, and he was walking with his parents, but he was like 20 paces ahead of his parents. And the way he was walking just was cracking me up, because he was like lollygagging in a way, like he was just, like, and or just all awkward. I don't know. He was walking very awkwardly, but I could just tell he was in that moment. Like he was very like, and it just made me think of like the wonder of the world when you're a little kid, and how everything is like there's wonder in everything. And it seems like the older you get, the more the world becomes grayscale. And like I honestly got a little emotional when I like saw that, like with that kid, and I was like, damn, like what happened to that? Like there's something so beautiful about this kid just like being present and being happy where he was just on some random walk. Like, yeah, I think just, yeah. Also just following what you want to do and following that kid within you, like the inner child. I think that's so cool when you can tell like you're getting giddy about something, or like getting passionate about like a movie, or like that's cool. I think that's like pure happiness, man. Like when something speaks to you and you allow yourself to appreciate it. Uh, yeah, yeah. Oh man, there's a lot to gain, but that's something will come to my head.
Yeah, just like the peer presence that children have and that teenagers have, you know,
Yeah,
like they're just living in the world that they're not worried about. I mean, there might be certain things that they're worried about, especially, as you kind of get into those teenage years, but
yeah,
they're just they're interacting with their environment, and they're finding certain things to do. Like, you remember how creative you used to get as a child and a teenager to find different things to entertain yourself, and it could be anything,
fuck,
like
man. Yes,
um,
dude. I was like I at my family cabin, me and my childhood best friend Max, we had like three main activities that we did. One of them was like using the old boards for our deck. We like it was like perfect to fit a little Hot Wheels car, and we'd like make tracks like rolling down the stairs. Like, yeah, that was all the joy we needed in the day. The other one was like making little rivers, like uh water. I know water is a crisis, but I'll ignore that for now. Being a kid, like we would leave the hose running and like make little rivers and creeks out of it. And there's something so
yeah.
cool about like making your own little waterfall. Like, oh, like dang, like. But then the other one was so fucking like Neanderthal. Like we'd just like we'd break big rocks, like huge rocks, like break them and then see what was like the colors inside. Like, oh, like, yeah, yeah. Those are, I don't know, just the things like that made our day up there were so simple. And I think, like not having a screen just to fucking input, not having just something telling you what to think and feel and what to focus on, like not having that input, and just like what your present self, what's around you, what your five senses are bringing in are the inputs. And
Man,
yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing because right now in my life, one thing that I'm trying to really focus on is peer presence. And it's a little bit harder when you live alone because it's so easy to fall into your phone or to fall into the TV, or your laptop, or music or anything. But
yeah,
like today, for example, I meditated for 26 minutes on abundance, and then I wrote down 8 different things that I am or that I want to become. And then, you know, usually when I sit down and like I eat, I usually am watching like the Mina Kimes show or some sports show or something. And today I was like, no, just eat, sit with yourself, eat and enjoy the food. The only dopamine that you need right now is from this food that's
the
in front of
taste of
you.
that meal.
Right.
Yeah.
And it felt good,
How
and
did,
and
yeah,
like when you have that presence, if life feels different.
how did you feel directly after your 26-minute meditation?
It was incredible, honestly. It was weird because right after the meditation, I was like reflecting on the meditation, and then I had a deja vu moment. Um,
That's interesting.
it's an interesting time to have a deja vu moment, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I felt amazing, and the one thing that I did, actually, kind of going back to the topic of doing things the way that you want to do them, is when I first started to meditate and I first started to learn how to, it was always like, hey, this is how you meditate. This is how you should sit. This is what you should think about. And today I was like, what would be the most helpful for me? Not how should I meditate, but what's going to be helpful right now? And I was like, if I just maybe make I am statements, manifestation statements like I am this, I am that, I am strong, I am capable, I am strong, right? Making those statements over the course of 26 minutes, having like really nice music, and then right after the meditation, writing down eight more I am statements. Like
Mm.
that seems like a practice that is really helpful for me, right? And I started to realize, okay, if I just like follow my intuition on this and just do the things that I want to do, like it becomes easier. So kind of going back to that whole thing where I think meditation at a certain point became mechanical for me. And I think honestly that's the biggest reason why it's been
Yes.
hard to
What do you,
stay
yeah.
into it. But today I was
Yeah.
like, that was like pure enjoyment. Like I don't always get that
Yeah.
when I try to meditate. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I had that with reading the other day. I always felt guilty that I haven't been reading the books that I've wanted to read. And I, like, one night, it was late as fuck at night, and I was like, I kind of want to read that book in bed. And I
Yeah.
read for like 20 minutes. And yeah, it was good. I actually like woke up with energy too, which was interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and you had me thinking, like, because I read Dave Goggins' book, and I think there's value in doing the things you don't want to do. I absolutely think there's value in that. Like, some days you don't want to run, you don't want to go exercise, and you force yourself to, and you are fucking happy you did. Like,
Yeah.
you feel good about it. Like, there's times to override. Like, riding life's pleasures is it's actually a pretty depressing life when you just are seeking going that route of least resistance all the time. But not everything is that black and white. And like, you got me thinking about, specifically for meditation, I go through those same like mental traps. Like, this is how you're supposed to meditate, or but the truth of it is, like, a meditation practice that you enjoy and becomes a program is better than one that's supposedly better for you that you don't keep up. Like, um whatever works for you is what's best. It's like,
Yeah.
uh yeah. So there's that balance. Like, sure, I wish fucking chocolate chip cookies were healthy. But like, I'd eat them all the time. But there's a time and place. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And it just so happens that a lot of the things that are really horrible for us taste the absolute best, right? It's like,
Yeah.
why?
And the opposite, bro. Like, the opposite of that is true. The things that taste like really fucking horrible are really good for you. Like, bro, next time I make this taco soup, I'm cutting up the spinach. I put just like a fucking bag of spinach in it, and the leaves were like pretty big. And I was like, oh, they're gonna get like watered down and soak up. They're gonna get all small, but they ended up being like really long, stringy bits in there. Anyways, I was like, fuck that, bro. Like, spinach, but it was fine. But
That is the natural evolution of this conversation is making sure that you break up your greens in your soup.
yeah,
Everybody
bro. Like,
take notes.
yeah, no, for real. Like, I learned my lesson, so you guys don't have to. Yeah, cut your spinach up before you cook it.
That's like straight out of the mouth of like the typical dad. Like, I made the mistake, so you don't have to make them. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm still gonna make
Yeah,
mistakes,
I have
Dad.
a
Thank you.
fatherly instinct. Yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Do you have like any other things that you feel like we could learn from children and teenagers?
I think I think kids are they approach the things they love with passion, and they passionately approach the things they love. I think living like that is a beautiful way to live. And I also think that you might not know everything that you love and that speaks to you. And I think trying new things is important. And I think, like, I just got into rock climbing and I fucking love it. And I took a chance. Like, I was going when I was like, rock climbing, but kind of allowed myself to live and I ended up loving it. And I think taking chances and trying new things, I guess specifically is where I'm talking. Trying new things, I think, is really important, and I think kids try new things way often than adults do. So I think that's something to be garnered.
Yeah, that wonder, and for me, I think the biggest thing that we can learn is how to regain our freedom, our freedom of
Mm,
mind, a freedom of action, because children just they find an interest in something, they don't analyze it, they just do it. They just
yeah.
do it because it's interesting. And if they get something out of it, good. If they get bored, they move on to the next thing, right? And of
Yeah.
like there's there's value in that too because
Yeah.
you're getting such a varied experience in life, and I think that's what kind of takes the mechanical nature out of
and
life in general.
and I respect this about kids, that kids fucking say what they think and feel. Like they don't
100%.
sugarcoat it. Like my second cousin, I guess specifically the term, maybe my whatever, like niece or nephew. My sister like went over
Your niece or
to my
nephew?
cut
Is it
my for this case is my nephew, but
okay? I was
but
like, is it a girl? Is it a
he's already
boy?
he's, he's already playing for both teams. No, I'm kidding. But it's my nephew. It's my nephew. And my sister went over to their house, and
Playing for both teams.
I'm sorry, bro, I shouldn't have said that. My sister went my sister went over to my cousin's house, and my nephew said to her straight up, he was like, "I'm uncomfortable that you're here." Or something like that. Or maybe it was as she was leaving, he was like, "I was uncomfortable when I heard you were coming, but I actually enjoyed you coming," or something like that. Like, yeah, like you imagine someone saying that to you? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then you think about, okay, like adults can be very like fake, and like they kind of beat around the bush, where at least me
Yeah.
personally, like if someone doesn't like me, I would like to know straight up. I would rather someone say, "Hey, I don't really like you," versus them smiling in my face and acting like they're my friend or acting like we're cool, and then behind my back they're talking about me. Like I feel like that is exponentially worse than someone just straight up saying, "Hey, you know what? I don't respect you." Because at least
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
you know where people stand, and you can get their perspective. If you're a mature person, you can get their perspective and see if there's actually a part that you play in it. Maybe they don't like you for a specific reason. Maybe it's the way that you carry yourself that makes other people uncomfortable. Maybe that's something that you
Oh,
need to be mindful of. And I think that's a
yeah.
part of taking accountability for the way that you are, the way that you relate to people, and how you affect other people. So I think that honesty is a good thing, right? I think that we get into
Yeah.
a lot of trouble when we're not.
Yeah, and it's like when conflicts arise, it's like communication is what gets you through it and what makes relationships, friendships, whatever stronger. And like avoiding that communication and talking like or just having things boil up and talking to other people like that doesn't help anything. Yeah, I'm with you. I really don't like that the gossipy stuff, Mark. Um, But I'm also I that's something I need to work on is being passive. I'd be kind of passive. Like you guys know that like like Jack, you cool to see in this movie? Uh yeah, Yeah, as long as I just gotta make sure I'm home by a certain time, like, like, like,
Instead of just saying, "Actually, no, I don't really wanna go."
yeah, exactly.
And I think, like, you have to lay it out for people, and you have to trust that they're mature enough to understand. Some people aren't, and honestly, that's okay, you know? If you say, "Hey, like, I don't wanna drink. I'm not a drinker," and someone is like, "Well, what's wrong with you, man?" Or like, "Oh, you're a party pooper, man," or they're, like, giving you, like, a weird look, that tells you everything you need to know about that person. If you say, "Hey,
Yeah,
I don't wanna go out to the club," or "I don't wanna go to this movie, I want to do something else," and they bash you for it, or they I don't know, they make a narrative, they create a label, that tells you all
yeah,
you need
like,
to know about them. It's like,
yeah, and
F off. Like, I don't want to hang out with you anyway if you don't respect my time and my space and my flow and the things that I want to do.
yeah, and it's like just because you want to do this thing doesn't mean I want to do this thing, and it doesn't make you wrong, and it doesn't make me wrong, it doesn't make you right, and it doesn't make me right. It's just fucking personal preference. And so there's nothing wrong with like that's something I want to instill in my head is like but it's very self-confident path is trusting what you want and acting on it. Like, yeah, shit, I'd rather see this movie. I'm gonna go see this movie. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I deal
definitely.
with that with the drinking stuff occasionally. Hasn't been as bad and as sometimes I pent up how it's gonna be a problem and it usually is never as much of a problem as if even a problem at all. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like with that specific scenario, I probably ran into that like maybe in college or something. But you're dealing with 19 to 20-year-olds who just don't really have a clue about boundaries that much, and so that's kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
um, we will wrap up here. I will be finishing all of these podcasts with one final question. Obviously, it'll change according to who I'm talking to, but
Yeah.
for you, Jack, just to kind of wrap this up, what do you feel like is your North Star in life?
Oh wow. Following the heart, man. Uh, following. I would rather risk a broken heart in whatever realm, take chances, than live numb, man. And um, for my music included, right, follow the heart and follow the passion. I think that's when life is the most vibrant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Follow the heart and take chances. You know,
yeah. I
like,
can shout out my mom for instilling that one in me. Yeah.
yeah, like in what ways did she instill that in you?
Oh, she flies by the seat of her pants, following her heart. Like she it takes her all sorts of places, but I also think she lives with more passion than most people I know, and I really admire that about my mom. Um, and I think, yeah, living with passion, and also like when you open yourself up, when you're allowed to go through life a little more vulnerable, you are opening yourself up for pain. But like some of the most beautiful pain is actually pain sucks, but it you grow a lot, and it's one of the most beautiful opportunity. It means you have a big heart and means you actually are alive when you're feeling that discomfort. And I think that sometimes gets lost in that. And I try to remind myself of that. But I think the life that I want to lead and the man I want to be is on the other side of living with an open heart and following my passions.
Yeah, for sure. That's beautiful. Just wrap it up in the bow. That is perfect. And I think something that I could contribute to that is just, I think everything that we go through is something that's going to lead us to the point that we want to get to, because we're always in motion in some sort of way. And I get it, man. Like I had a period in my life where it was just it felt like I was just hitting rock bottom after rock bottom. But those times that I went through actually have gotten me to this point where now I am
Yeah.
as, you know, confident as I have been ever in my life and more capable, more smarter, just all of these different
Yeah.
things. And so I feel like in life, you know, the mantra that I like to use is either you win or you learn, right? If you don't
Mm,
win and you lose, you can learn something from that setback and use it as fuel for your next win.
absolutely. It's a great way to close this out. That's absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for coming to the podcast. This is Jack Thorsland, everybody. He is still in the process of making music, but
I'll be I'll
um,
be dropping my first song soon. Been saying that a long time, but it's coming. It's coming soon. This summer for sure.
for sure, we'll definitely be on the lookout for that. It's going to be amazing and full of soul.
Mm.
And as we've
Thank you,
talked
brother.
about before, that is more of what we need in every single industry. But with that being said, thanks everybody for sticking with us. If you've gotten all the way to this point, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe for more in depth conversations about the human experience. See you next time.